We need a starting point for the modern era. Okay. And the modern era is essentially 1913, the 16th Amendment, and income tax. Now, a lot of people don't know that President Taft wrote a letter to Congress basically saying the Supreme Court has said 3 different times in 3 different decisions that income tax is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And he did this in 1910. He said, so what we're going to do is override all of that. There's what's called the apportionment clause in the Constitution, which says you can't just put a flat tax per capita on people's heads. It's in the Constitution. You can't do that. It has to be apportioned by the population of the states.
Okay.
That's what apportionment means.
So you're saying like a standard sales tax would be unconstitutional?
No.
No?
No, I'm talking about specifically income tax.
Okay.
Sales tax is just sales tax.
Well, the thing with income tax,
that's commerce.
That was never properly ratified, if I recall.
And it was supposed to be temporary during the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only a tax on people who made it over a certain amount. It was only 2%.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Supreme Court went, no, that's no good. Got rid of it. Then they tried to install income tax again. Supreme Court again said no. And then in a case called Pollock v. Farmer in 1968, I want to say, the Supreme Court said just no, period, no, knock it the F off.
Question. What major event took place within 2 years of the income tax in 1916?
Oh, well, we're getting to that, see? Yeah. We're getting to that, see? Yes. Because the kickoff for the modern era of what we're facing now is the 16th Amendment. And it was literally, you could go back and read the history and the documents around it. I've read a bunch of them. It was literally written to subvert SCOTUS's decision on income tax. That's why it's there. To totally subvert the Constitution to force income tax upon us. Now, their excuse was it was going to be temporary, and it was for World War I, which
2 weeks to flatten the curve.
2 weeks to flatten the curve. They use the same logic over and over and over again. They do this shit.
Yep. And listen, because of that income tax, it fueled the war machine for World War I, World War II, and every major conflict since then.
Now, let's go with World War I, which had been brewing right around 1913. The climate was there.
So wait.
Yeah.
You're saying there was strife in Europe, and that led to a world war. And in 1800s, there was strife in Europe, which led to a virtual whole continent war.
And America wasn't in the game at the time, or America would have been involved.
But the same thing happened in the 1700s between France and England.
I know, weird shit.
Are we seeing a pattern here?
It's odd. And I am going to do the unspeakable, and I don't care. Because in, I believe it was 1915, when the war was beginning to really kick off, the individual by the name of Rothschild, who had great influence in Germany and the banking sector and Austria and a couple of other places, Switzerland, I believe he was based out of, approached the British Foreign Office because Britain was getting their butts kicked in World War I initially. Yes, they were. They were getting their butts kicked initially.
Yes, they were.
Britain kept trying to get the United States involved. Well, the United States, to the tune of 97%, wanted nothing at all to do with World War I. United States was primarily an agrarian nation. We were farmers for the most part. Didn't want anything to do with the war, but here comes Rothschild to the British Foreign Office and says, hey, if you give me Palestine as a Jewish homeland.
Now, there's paperwork for this, right?
No, this is the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah.
It's literally in the Balfour Declaration.
Correct.
Okay, this is a written historical record. So YouTube, if you ding us on this, because this is written historical records. You give us Palestine, and I will talk to my friend Martin Brandeis, who is a Supreme Court justice who has the ear of Wilson.
Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
What did Palestine become? Israel?
A place
A place.
that gets controversial to speak of on the YouTubes.
Or any tube, yeah.
Yeah. At any rate, that's what happened. That's what got us into the war. That's why 325,000 young American men were sacrificed on the battlefields of Europe in a war that we had nothing to do with at all.
Well, I
There
believe
was no reason for the U.S.
stand
to be
by.
Okay.
Some of the excuses, we were getting some of our ships torpedoed.
Okay, so bear with me.
Okay.
Bear with me, okay?
Let's go down the memory hole.
Let's use an incident where you'll have some context. We're on a street in Washington, and the year is like, what was it, 1992, 1990?
We're talking about the shootout.
I am.
That was 1989 or 1990.
Okay, so you're with the Rangers across the street, and the dope dealers across the street, and you guys are going at it, right? And here comes me, your neighbor from down the street, walking boxes of ammo up to their door and setting them on their porch. Are you going to allow me to continue to do that, or are you going to shoot me in the ass, maybe?
You might get scuffed up a bit.
Probably get scuffed up a bit.
Yeah.
We were supplying Germany's enemies. Of course, they were going to go for our boats.
I'm not saying it was a wrong thing.
I'm not criticizing you in particular, mind you.
Yeah.
I'm saying the historians. Oh, well, the Germans attacked American ships. We were literally bringing them supplies,
food, vehicles,
ammo, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, the whole deal.
We were bringing them supplies.
Except that there was no Lend-Lease back then. We were selling it to them.
Yes.
Yes.
That is correct. So, of course, the Germans attacked those ships. They were at war.
I would do the same thing.
If somebody starts dumping ammo into my enemy's backyard and I see the car drive away, that car's getting hosed, man.
Next time I see that car,
yeah,
it's going to get smoked.
It's getting a little 240 love.
Yeah. 240 love.
Point blank.
Fair enough.
But that's that was the excuse they used to drag us into the war. But the truth was that Rothschild basically gave 325,000 young American lives to England to dispose of on the battlefield in exchange for Palestine so they could form a country in 1948.
And I believe between England and France, we have somewhere between 150 and 180,000 of our service members buried on foreign soil.
Mm-hmm.
They were drafted, and then the government couldn't even pony up enough fucking cash to transport their carcasses home.
Yes. The Silhai program still operates out of Hawaii. I have seen that. I didn't participate in it myself, but it was in our periphery. Because in the signals intelligence world, anything that you communicate when you're outside of the United States, if you're in a threat country, we're going to be watching you.
Correct.
And the Silhai had people in Vietnam and in North Korea. They recovered a bunch of the frozen chosen while I was there.
Oh, so those are the guys who go find the missing in actions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Silhai program.
Yeah, but my thing is this, we have a problem with people at the top who think they're special. The rules and the laws and the customs of this world do not apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have absolutely no problem marching whole generations of our youth into the meat grinder for their enrichment and embetterment. That is about the worst injustice you can think of.
And right around the time that the whole World War I incident happened, another incident happened that began in 1916 in New York with a particular individual named Lev Bronstein, who was from the Ukraine. He was in New York, and a bunch of bankers there.
Are you going to say the word?
We're not there yet. We haven't even been there yet.
Because I'm going to drink.
But hang on.
Okay.
If you buy now, you'll also get 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution. Because Lev Bronstein is the guy you know as Leon Trotsky. Mm-hmm. Yes, that came out of New York. It was bankrolled by New York. They sent him back to Ukraine with the money to start a revolution which became the Reds, which became, of course, the Bolsheviks.
Wasn't that called the Sudetenland back in the day?
No, that's a different thing.
Okay.
That's a different thing. That was part of Yugoslavia.
Well, because they were fighting
Sudetenland was
over.
part of Yugoslavia. That's World War II.
Well, the thing is Ukraine has been fought over since forever because it's so rich with farmland. Everyone wanted it.
Well, the port of Odessa is there as well, which for the Black Sea is like the big port. That whole area has been at war for 2,000 years.
And that would be like the Crimea?
Part of it.
Yeah.
Part of
where
the Crimea is over
the
there.
charge of the Light Brigade happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of history there. But anyway, Lev Bronstein and the Bolsheviks originated from the Ukraine, planned their stuff in New York, went to Russia with the money they got from the New York bankers, and overthrew the Tsar and imperialist Russia. And then we got 100 million dead and 70 years of misery. While all of that's going on, meanwhile, in Germany, the Weimar period is ramping up. And there's debauchery, and Berlin is like the ultimate city of sin through the 20s.
But after World War I.
Right.
That is the entire world,
yeah,
basically dogpiled Germany and tried to force them to pay the world's war debt.
Yes, that is correct.
Because they got blamed for it.
Yes.
And that led to what you're talking about.
Right. And inflation and literally wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread.
I have to add that. Here, hang on. Yeah. Anger,
yeah, absolutely. Which, of course, led to the rise of one angry Austrian painter and corporal from World War I who was mustard gassed.
Yes, he received minor mustard gas wounds. Yes. I believe he received a couple shrapnel wounds as well.
I believe he did, but at any rate, our angry painter became the chancellor of Germany.
The angry leader of Germany.
Became the angry leader of Germany. I bet he's still painted. I don't know.
What could go wrong?
Really we could have asked him up till about 1968, apparently.
Yeah. Well, he was in Argentina.
I know. At any rate, when that happened, the big group called the Frankfurt School was thrown out of Germany. Most of them went to Switzerland and France. Some of them came to the United States, Columbia University in particular, via Switzerland, and the big one there was a guy named Herbert Marcuse. Mm-hmm. And the dean of the school at Columbia at the time was a guy named Horkheimer.
And what year was this?
1932, specifically.
1932, yeah.
Yes.
That was when they actually got a major foothold into the university system.
30 to 32 is when the Frankfurt School started to flee. Marcuse himself arrived in 1932 and ended up being the most influential of them. Horkheimer, as the dean of Columbia, was already interested in the Marxist doctrine and the Frankfurt School because of the people who came before that around 1930.
So what you're saying is we had a poisonous fungus blow across the ocean and take root in the United States.
Oy vey, yes.
And we're seeing that poisonous fungus en masse now.
Yes. Now, once you've got the universities being compromised around 1932, that took some time. And the first results of that, in other words, the students, would have taken about 6 years from that point. So now we're at 1938.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those students become teachers. They start producing students. Now we're at about 1940. And it would only take about 2 years for those teachers it's a very short period of time once the teachers get in there. I don't mean professors.
No, I know.
don't mean university professors. I mean high school teachers.
Well, the trickle down, you probably started seeing it at the beginning of the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
And who was that one FBI guy who hunted communism? What was his name?
FBI guy?
The guy.
Senator?
No.
McCarthy?
The guy who ran the FBI.
Hoover. Was a drag queen.
Yeah, I know. But he started really cracking down on the communism, and then McCarthy was going after it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone thought, they went along with it in the beginning, and they're like, well, this is crazy. It's not happening. But it's like literally re-tricking everyone into believing the devil didn't exist again.
Yeah. Then now you know.
And now you know.
The rest of the story.
Yeah.
Who's the radio voice that did that? What was that, guys?
Was it Walter Cronkite?
No, it was not Walter Cronkite. I can't remember who that guy was.
I don't remember.
At any rate, here's the important part. Now the Marxists and the Bolsheviks have a foothold in our school system.
Yes.
Now that starts to trickle into Citadel, Mississippi, West Point. Those are our big military academies.
I mean, we just had that.
A big military academy.
We had that one guy wearing that Che Guevara shirt when he graduated West Point.
Yeah.
And it literally said communism is going to win.
In his hat, written inside of his hat.
Yeah. Listen, and these guys, he's not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of general officers out there who believe the same way, who need to get shown the fucking door.
Well, this is the point where this really, truly began, was the mid-1940s. And by 1950, when you got Eisenhower, who was a screaming homosexual, if you look at his photographs, it's obvious, okay? The guy's a fairy.
Yes.
Ike was a fairy. And Patton mysteriously gets killed after saying, we fought the wrong enemy. And all of a sudden he has a Jeep accident and then dies mysteriously.
No, I don't think
Paul Harvey. Yes.
No, it was an actual car accident. It wasn't a Jeep accident, I believe.
There's a Jeep involved. I'm positive that there was a Jeep involved.
He might have hit a Jeep, but he was in the car. It was in the staff car.
At any rate. At any rate.
And his neck got mysteriously broken.
Yeah.
How old was he? Like 58?
He wasn't that old.
Wasn't that old.
Was not that old.
So we're talking about a guy who raced his entire army across Germany under fire to assist with the Battle of the Bulge to contain the German counterattack. Survived hundreds of artillery attacks, strafings, being shot at, and then mysteriously at the end of the war, there's a fender bender where he breaks his neck. Yeah. I don't believe
somebody in the chat says he died from a broken collarbone. Which probably is in the medical record just like that. I'll bet you it is.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, now we're into 1950, 1951. This is when the Red Scare begins and McCarthy starts going at it, saying there's communists all over the fucking place. Let me tell you why Joe McCarthy was wrong. It was way, way worse than he thought it was.
Uh-huh.
This is the point in time where they use a really duplicitous trick. Because in the public, remember hiding under your desk for a nuclear drill? Like that was going to do anything?
We never did that.
You never did nuke drills?
No.
Dude, we did nuke drills. Wow. Where you hide under your desk or you go hide out in the hallway?
We went in the hallway, but they called it a tornado warning drill.
But there was the whole, we could say better red than dead. And calling somebody a commie was actually an insult.
A bad thing.
Right. While they're doing that, at the exact same time, in the government, the senators and politicians and little bureaucrats, the little hired henchlings that are already communists.
The deep state?
There you go. Are laughing at people like McCarthy and mocking him and turning him into a joke. The guy drank himself to death.
Wow.
Because of all the pressure from all of this. What do you...
Men drink themselves to death.
No. This guy drank himself to death because of the pressure. It's documented.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, if I hadn't occurred to my drinking, I would have drank myself to death as well.
Take your thumb out of your rectum. Stay focused.
Okay.
At any rate, that's where communism simultaneously became the greatest enemy and the biggest joke. Once that started, our government just became more and more compromised because what they did was the slow walk through the institutions. Well, they had just captured the schools.
Well, hang on.
And the universities.
But they always do the same. It's like the same playbook.
Yeah.
Fear.
Yep.
Fear is the number one thing to get the sheeple to fall in line.
Yep, we're getting there.
Confusion, ignorance, and panic. Their warriors are taking place.
Yep.
During the warriors, there's a whole lot of fear, confusion, ignorance, and panic.
Yep.
And they just took advantage of that and slowly took away your freedoms a little at a time.
Yep.
And you didn't notice.
Yep.
And here we are today.
Well, back in 1961, a guy named JFK got himself elected president.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been noticing all of that stuff. He said, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of this stuff. And I don't want this little country over here in the Levant that used to be Palestine to have nukes
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of other things. And the documents have just come out. We know who did this, and nobody's been punished for it yet. And that's when JFK got his famous haircut in Texas in 1963.
No, this is just my opinion.
Okay.
We know who all the Mossad agents are that are in the country.
No.
You don't think so?
Okay.
Okay.
I know this because I dealt a lot with that world, and it's really hard to find them all. We know who most of them are.
All right. Well,
we know who
in
most
my
of them
opinion, after those JFK documents released, Trump should have issued a blanket order to have them all deported out of the country. We cannot have that kind of risk walking around.
They own our bureaucracy.
You're correct. And
APAC.
Well, they're behind, what is it, USAID and,
Act Blue,
WinRed.
all of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, look, if you think Act Blue is the only corrupt side, I got ripped off at almost $1,800 from WinRed.
Yeah.
I gave them a $60 donation, and it turned into $1,800 fucking dollars.
Yeah. They kept billing you, didn't they?
$600 a month.
Yeah.
I got like 1,000 of it back. I might have to file the small claims.
Yeah.
Court. I'll probably file in small claims, call a reporter, get it on the news, and they will cut me a check faster. They can fart in a windstorm.
I don't donate to any political organization because
I never will again.
So well concealed now.
Yeah, I never will do it again.
They're so well concealed now.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the meat caser box.